You think you know early American history. Buckle up, because today we are diving into a forgotten chapter that will rewrite what you thought you knew about the very beginnings of colonization in this country.
I am excited. Let's do it.
Okay, so everybody learns about Jamestown
Right.
and, of course, Plymouth Rock,
Of course.
but almost nobody has ever heard of San Miguel de Gualdape.
Yeah.
It was a Spanish settlement founded in 1526,
Wow.
decades before those more famous English colonies.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We're talking about the coast of what is now South Carolina or Georgia,
Interesting.
and this was led by a Spanish explorer
Okay.
named Lucas Vázquez de Ayllón.
I've heard of him.
Now get this, over 500 settlers,
500.
men, women, children, and even enslaved Africans.
That's huge for the time period.
This is a big deal for the time period.
It really is.
Spain wasn't just messing around here.
Yeah.
They really wanted to make their mark on the New World.
They wanted to establish a permanent presence.
Yeah, they wanted to solidify their foothold, and they were not playing around. And these settlers, right, they came all the way from Hispaniola.
Really?
Can you imagine that journey?
I mean, it must have been grueling.
Oh, it would have been incredible.
And dangerous.
Absolutely.
So many unknowns.
I mean, we're talking about sailing across the ocean in the 16th century.
Right.
I mean, that was no walk in the park.
No kidding.
But as you can imagine, things did not exactly go as planned.
Of course not. Right?
What happened?
Well, think about it. They arrived in the peak of summer.
Oh, no.
Scorching heat and humidity.
Brutal.
I mean, they were completely unprepared for those conditions.
I bet.
And the landscape was nothing like they were used to.
I can imagine.
Dense forests,
Yeah.
making farming a nightmare.
So they couldn't just plant their European crops.
No, they tried. Wheat, barley, you name it. Total failure. The soil just wasn't right.
What did it need?
Turns out it was better suited to native plants, like maize.
So they're facing this brutal heat, unfamiliar terrain,
Yeah.
and now their food supplies are dwindling.
That's right.
This sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It is, and it gets even worse.
What else could go wrong?
Disease started spreading like wildfire through the settlement.
Oh, no.
This was a time before modern medicine. Even a simple cut could turn deadly.
That's terrifying.
Dysentery, typhoid, malaria. They were hit hard.
Just one of those things could wipe out a community.
Yeah.
And they had all of them.
Absolutely.
It's heartbreaking to imagine what those settlers had to endure.
All those hopes and dreams shattered.
And amidst all of this, we can't forget the enslaved Africans who were brought to the colony.
Right.
This is one of the earliest documented instances of forced African labor.
Yep.
In what would eventually become the United States.
A truly tragic chapter in our history.
So what happened to these enslaved people?
Well, amidst all the chaos and
And
hardship, there are accounts of incredible bravery.
really?
Some individuals managed to escape the settlement,
What?
and they sought refuge with indigenous tribes.
They escaped?
Yes, they did. Think about that, escaping into unfamiliar territory with no guarantees of safety.
It's hard to even fathom that kind of courage.
Yeah, it really is.
Facing those kinds of odds. These are some of the earliest forms of resistance
Eg-
against slavery
Mhm.
on North American soil.
Exactly.
These stories are so important to remember. They
Uh-huh.
add a whole other layer of complexity to this already fascinating, but tragic chapter of history. Ultimately, what became of San Miguel de Gualdape?
Well, within just 3 months, the colony was abandoned.
3 months.
The remaining settlers, weakened by disease, starvation, and conflict, they had no choice but to flee.
Wow. I mean, that's just incredible to think about. I mean, so they had all these grand ambitions. They put all this effort into getting there, and it just fell apart.
It did, and it serves as a powerful reminder of the harsh realities of early colonization.
So what is this forgotten colony? Tell us about early American history.
It forces us to look beyond the traditional narratives. It reveals the complex interactions
Right.
between the European colonists, the indigenous populations,
Mhm.
and the enslaved Africans.
Right.
It's a nuanced and often overlooked perspective.
And it makes you wonder, how different would the map of colonial America look if San Miguel de Gualdape had succeeded?
That is a question worth pondering.
The story of San Miguel de Gualdape, though brief and undeniably tragic, forces us to re-examine the beginnings of this nation. It's a reminder that history is full of untold stories, stories just waiting to be unearthed, Stories that can change our understanding of the past.
Absolutely.
And how it shapes our present.
I couldn't agree more.
And that's San Miguel de Gualdape.
Fascinating stuff.
Join us next time for another deep dive into a forgotten corner of history.
I can't wait. See you then.